ever heard that expression, "You're the goat"? None of us?
Do you mean the GOAT all caps?
Yeah, GOAT.
Greatest of all time.
Greatest of all time. Oh, thank goodness somebody said that. The 8 o'clockers all had it.
I was thinking of the other goat.
Nope, GOAT. Greatest of all times. Apparently, it kind of goes back to Muhammad Ali. You know, like, I'm the greatest, right? But then the rapper LL Cool J put out an album in the year 2000 called GOAT, the greatest of all time. And the rest is legend. Now you can go to sporting events and you can see signs with pictures of goats and their favorite athlete on it. So who's the goat depends on the field of human endeavor. But there are plenty of lists on the internet, believe me. I spent a lot of time Googling them yesterday. I'll bet some of you can name some of these. Like, basketball player, who's the GOAT?
Michael Doar.
Yeah, exactly. How about baseball player? Who's the GOAT?
Babe Ruth.
Yep. You guys are really good at this. Okay.
Sammy Sosa.
Maybe.
Okay, this one might be a little bit more controversial. Football player. Who's the GOAT?
Who cares?
Pele.
Well, actually, interestingly, the answer to that question, according to the internet, is Lionel Messi. But I personally, as a 70s kid, loved Pele because he used to play. I used to see him play in San Jose all the time. So yeah, so it all depends on what you're talking about. Oh, here's one everyone should be able to guess after the summer. How about gymnasts? Who's the GOAT?
Simone Biles.
Simone Biles, of course. She's got little girls all over the place with goat signs. I think they developed a goat cheer for her. Pretty cool. So it's not just sports, though, that uses this expression. I mean, there's a GOAT for rock and roll music. Who do you think that might be? Who's the greatest rock and roll singer of all times? Who's the GOAT?
Elvis.
Joan.
Yes! Oh, you were going to say John Lennon?
No, Joan Jett.
Oh, John. That's the Gen X answer.
Artist of core.
Yes. How about greatest rock and roll band of all time? Who's the GOAT?
Probably the Rolling Stones.
Yeah. We had some conflict at 8 o'clock between the Rolling Stones and the Beatles.
Oh, yeah.
But I think they're both good answers to that question. How about greatest movie of all time?
What? Musician?
Movie. Sorry, did I not say that loud enough? What's the greatest? What do you think the greatest movie of all time is?
Moana.
Moana. Gone with the Wind. That came up.
Moana or Thor Ragnarok.
Oh, Thor Ragnarok. Thor Ragnarok, definitely.
So the funny thing is, like, we all had pretty similar answers for all of these, but the movie one, there was no agreement on it. No agreement at all. I was like, Empire Strikes Back. So, as you can see, there's lots of lists about who's the greatest of all time, depending on the field of human endeavor. But what about the greatest human being of all time?
It's not me.
Jesus.
Who did you say?
It's not me.
It's not you.
Jesus.
Is
Jesus!
it Jesus?
That one,
That was easy.
people pretty much agree upon, which is, I mean, it's hard to imagine that because, you know, there's people that have come from all sorts, but even people outside of Christian countries, still a lot of them will say that Jesus stands out in the world of, you know, people who have lived human lives. And, you know, I mean, I'm waiting for the day when I someday meet Jesus face to face. I want to be like, high five, Jesus, you're the GOAT. Can't wait.
It was a lamb.
You're right.
Very good.
He was a lamb, you're right.
Ooh, nice.
All right. So today we're being asked a different question, though. What about the followers of Jesus? Who was the greatest Christian of all time?
Well, depends on whether or not you're asking Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I Googled that, and this is a much more wide open question. But most of the lists that came up were topped by people like Henry VIII, Elizabeth I, and Charlemagne. all those Christian kings and queens who were like definitely great from a human historical standard. They were powerful Christian monarchs. They profoundly influenced the course of their nations and the life of the church. So you can kind of see an argument there. But do we think that Jesus would say that those people of all of his followers throughout the intervening 2,000 years or so since Jesus was alive, of all of those people, do we think that Jesus would say that those monarchs are the ones that understood the calling of a Christian in this world the best?
No.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you guys. I don't think so. I mean, and that's exactly the problem that Jesus' disciples are having in today's gospel reading. We meet them, and it's, I have to say, in one of their less flattering moments, because they are busy arguing with each other over who's the goat in their little band of followers. Now, Mark doesn't always give us all the details, but you can see this going a couple ways. You can see them like, I'm the greatest. No, I'm the greatest because I did, I cast out that spirit. No, I healed that kid. Not pretty, right? Or you can see them lining up between like Team Peter and Team John and having sort of a faction fight within their little group of disciples. But either way, it's not a good look for them. Clearly, Jesus thinks that they are getting a bit full of themselves too, and that he needs to kind of bring them back down to earth, do a little bit of reteaching with them. And I mean, you can't blame them, because they have in fact just been on this triumphal tour all over Galilee and to the international places just outside of Galilee, and it has been sell-out crowds the whole way. Wherever they went, it was pretty exciting. And now they're back on their home turf. So Jesus, he moves into this quiet space. It's like okay, we're gonna have a huddle now, people, and we're gonna get back to what matters here. He wants to remind them that they are not in this for the glory. They are not in this for the glory. So who's the goat? Asked Jesus. His answer is pretty straightforward. The goat, the greatest of all, is the one who is the servant of all. The servant of all. Now, like I said, Mark's storytelling is sparse, and so we don't get to hear how they react either. But I'm kind of imagining that just shut down their argument pretty quickly, and they probably started giving each other guilty looks, like, oh, busted. Because that's not the way they were acting, was it? They're more acting like kids. Probably those kids that Jesus welcomed were acting better than those disciples were here. And they've been with Jesus long enough at this point that they should know this already. He has in fact been saying this for a long while now in both subtle and more direct teachings. In fact, we heard him talking about it only last Sunday when he said, if any want to be my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. Denying yourself? That is not really the typical sort of goat behavior, is it? Doesn't sound like the people that we celebrate as great. Doesn't sound like their kind of thing. It is something, however, that goes back to the words of the prophets. Yet I don't think it was any easier for those disciples to hear this than it is for us to hear it today in our, let's face it, pretty highly competitive culture that we're a part of. So I think that in this light, for followers of Jesus, the answer to that question, who's the goat? Well, it's more likely to be people like Mother Teresa or St. Francis, who we'll get to hear more about next Sunday. And yet, if you think about those two figures, I can't imagine either of them kind of duking it out with each other to say, like, I'm the greatest. No, I'm the greatest. Both of them, in fact, were too busy feeding the hungry, caring for the sick, and highlighting the overlooked needs of the most powerful and vulnerable in their societies. And I have to say, either of them has my vote over any of those kings and queens. But today, I think that we might also be invited to look closer to home for the type of greatness that Jesus is talking to us about. I mean, it is important to have those famous role models whose greatness we can only aspire to. But what if Jesus is telling them that greatness, as one of his followers, is not the kind of thing that is few and far between? In fact, greatness as a follower of Jesus is something that we can all step into. Now, that letter from James gives us all kinds of details about how we can follow in the footsteps of that same kind of the greatness that we meet in Jesus. James is great for this. He's very down to earth and practical. He suggests things like we might act with gentleness and peace, might stop trying to overpower others and instead, work together in love. He says that we could give and forgive graciously, and then let go of ambition and resentment and boasting. I mean, all of that is good stuff. And it feels like a more personal and intimate look at how one can be great in the way that Jesus is suggesting to us. So, all month we've been reading from the letter of James as our second reading. And I've been inviting us to look at it from the perspective of those scholars who suggest that it might have actually been Jesus' brother James who wrote that letter. So I want us to just imagine today that if this is James, the brother of Jesus, then this could in fact be a description of the Jesus that James had known while he was growing up. Maybe James knew Jesus, an older brother who let James shine instead of, putting him down like lots of older siblings do to their younger siblings. Maybe he saw Jesus and experienced Jesus as one who offered his younger sibling the largest piece of, the Sabbath challah instead of grabbing for the big piece first. Maybe Jesus was the type of big brother that would listen instead of fighting to be right all the time. And, stop and pick James up when he fell down, when he was running after Jesus, his big brother, as, little brothers sometimes do. What's really great about this very down-to-earth idea of greatness? We all know people like this, don't we? We have parents or grandparents or siblings or friends or great Aunt Ruth. And I am guessing that that's how a lot of us learn how to become great Christians. It's not from those famous people who are arguably great Christians, but we learn about how to live into Christian greatness through our nearest and dearest. So, who is the greatest Christian that you know? Who's that person who embodies Jesus' ethic of servant love and how they travel through the ordinariness of each day, family life, community life, just the way they are? Is there someone who showed you how to be a great follower of Jesus? I have a feeling you all have someone. I see some smiling. Does anyone have someone who stands out for them that they're willing to share about? Just name them and say a little bit about why they were great Christian and inspired you a lot. Go ahead, Lisa.
My buddy Cliff.
Your buddy Cliff.
With whom I was in a critique group for years and years and years.
Uh-huh.
And he was the one who, anytime any one of us published something, he would bring cake.
Uh-huh.
You know, he hosted us at his house.
Mm-hmm.
He was constantly pep talking us and, you know, really encouraging us to see the worth in the things that we were doing.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, really led me to being able to think a lot more expansively about the work that I do and about how the work that I do is not a competitive thing, but a cooperative thing. Like everyone has their own story to tell, and nobody else can tell your story. And that has made a huge difference in the way that I do the stuff that I do. And, you know, I don't even think he knows that he has now impacted people all over the world.
Wow. That is a great example. Thank you for sharing that. Someone who helps you to see your worth and the gifts that you have to share, and help everybody to see that and understand the stories that they have to tell. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else have one that they want to share? Jane.
Sally.
Callie.
Sally.
Oh, Sally. Say more about what's making you name. I mean, I think we all could fill that one in, those of us who know Sally, but say why she name some of the Christian great qualities that are standing out for you right at this moment.
The fact that she serves through the food pantry, and the fact that she's so much more tolerant than I am.
Tolerant. That's that's a lit. Give and forgive graciously, right? Oh, that's so Sally, isn't it?
Yeah, and the way she can express her faith through prayers and through her cards. And she's just so gracious and
yeah.
Such a wonderful example.
Yeah.
She kind of helps smooth my rough edges.
Yes, I think people who are great in this way do help smooth our rough edges. Thank you. Thank you for bringing up Sally. Annie.
So I don't know if he's Christian or not, but everything he does is kind of the Christian way. He doesn't see any bad in anyone. He never can see bad in anyone. And if somebody else sees bad in something, he'll tell you why that's not right, because there's something else about them that's good. He always, people can be the biggest pain, and he'll never see them as a pain. He'll always take the positive side of everything.
Yeah.
And then he tries to help everybody, sometimes all at once, but so I mean, I don't know. I've never had that discussion with him. But just the way he has his life is just so kind and helpful to everybody. And just everybody's, to him, everybody's good. Everybody's got really good nature, even if they haven't.
Yeah. So I love that, what you highlighted there. We don't always know if people are Christian or not, but you can tell that they have this Christian heart. And especially when they're someone who can find the good in everyone and help us to find the good in everyone. I worked for a pastor once, and she was the one I talked about at 8 o'clock. This was when there were early in there being women in the pastors, and I was working as a parish secretary. I was young. I was like 21, 22. And, there were two congregations that we were serving, and people can be frustrating. People can be really frustrating, and 21-year-olds aren't always great with that kind of stuff. And this particular pastor, she was amazing, because she would do that same thing. She would help me to see the good in all of the people that I was finding the most frustrating, and be like, this is how you understand who they are and what they're dealing with. This is the beauty of who they are, and these are the gifts that they bring to this community, and why I appreciate that they're there. I'll never forget her, and that taught me a lot of what it is to be a Christian, to be a follower of Jesus. So yeah, thank you for reminding me of that. One more? Does anyone have one more they want to share? Sue.
I hesitate at sharing, but it was my mom. the thing that I never could understand is that my mom and I were at a bit of conflict when it came to our particular church that we went to.
Uh-huh.
And she didn't quite agree with things that I believed in and vice versa.
Right.
However, I had to give her the fact that she was a wonderful Christian. She
Yeah.
loved everybody. She wanted to help everybody. She was always working towards, her church and doing things in the church. So she was a great example, even though she was not in line with how I perceived things. If you understand what
I know what you're saying. So we have different ways of being Christian in terms of our theologies, right? And our doctrines. That's always been true. Lots of diversity in Christianity. But what you're saying is underlying this question, were they a servant of all? I hear you saying that about your mother. And you could recognize that in her. And it inspired you.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that, Sue. So, I think we could keep talking about this all day. I encourage you to keep thinking about it. Who were the people who were the greatest Christians of all in your own life? And also, I want to invite you all to think maybe you're that greatest Christian of all that has been an inspiration to someone in your life. Because I know you all have it in you. I know you all have that greatness in you. So I think you're all to go. So, what do you say? What if we all kind of give up on achieving the kinds of greatness that you win prizes for? I think that's what the invitation is here from Jesus today. To, instead look to Jesus and those who have shown us how to follow this path to greatness for all. And then, just follow in their footsteps and be the servant of all. Amen.
Amen.